We are celebrating 90 years of the Michigan Chronicle, recognized 5 times as the best black newspaper in the country. Founded in 1936 with a mission to serve Detroit and its black community, the Chronicle has shared stories often untold and brought light through dedicated reporting and discussions about critical issues. Those decades of focused journalism sparked an idea: Pancakes and Politics, bringing together leaders with diverse backgrounds to talk about business, politics, and the community. Today, we are bringing you a special edition of Pancakes and Politics, live from the Detroit Auto Show. Today's conversation highlights the auto industry and how to move the regional economy forward. We'll hear from Jared Fleischer, the CEO of Bedrock, Wayne County Executive Warren Evans, and Chris Thomas, the co-founder and partner of Assembly Ventures. Our moderator is Dennis Archer Jr., the chairman and CEO of 1642 Ventures. Today's Pancakes and Politics is brought to you by HAP.
To all of you who normally come to our regular season, we hope you appreciate being here at the auto show at Huntington Place, because the auto show kicks off. I think it kicked off yesterday, and we're excited to be here. Today is, for those of you who haven't experienced Pancakes and Politics before, this is a powerful speaker series that features leaders from our region. So we just want to thank you for being here. And at this time, I want to thank one of our sponsors, our main sponsors, HAP, and give them a round of applause. Thank you, HAP. And we're going to show a short video from our sponsor.
What makes you feel at home? It's a sense of comfort, support, and just being you. It's a warm welcome, big hug, and a smile that greets you. The Make Yourself at Home declaration and the special way Michiganders treat guests and loved ones. At HAP, we understand your needs and will always provide what it takes to make you feel at home. No matter what your health plan needs, HAP is your reassuring guide that knows where you're coming from. HAP, Michigan's home for health insurance.
At this time, I'd love to introduce the visionary behind Pancakes and Politics and so many other wonderful programs that we have here in Michigan. At this time, I'd like to bring to the podium the CEO of Real Times Media and the publisher of the Michigan Chronicle, Mr. Hiram Jackson.
Good morning. Fearless warriors. Give yourselves a round of applause. All of the wimps that are late and still in the bed, crying about the flu. Fearless warriors, thank you for coming this morning. I'm not feeling all that great myself, but I called Dennis about 5:30 this morning. I said, man, I'm not feeling good. You may have to pick up the slack. And he's like, yeah, get out the bed. So, you know, he's been giving me orders like that since 5th grade. So I just got out the bed, and I'm a fearless warrior like you, right? But thank you so much for being here. Those of you who know and have a relationship with the Michigan Chronicle, you know we're serious about informing and entertaining our community. Our content and our programs are rooted from the black experience, but we get real excited when everyone can share in our programs. And that's what Pancakes and Politics is all about. It's a series where we talk about the most important issues of the day in our region. And what I love about it is, you look around, you have neighbors from Genesee and Macomb and Oakland and Wayne County, because we're all in this together. And we need everybody to have a seat at the table when we're talking about some of these issues. So as the video talked about, this is our 90th year, the 90th year of the Michigan Chronicle. Yep. And we're going to have several celebrations throughout the year. You know, in 1936, a young man came to Detroit with $5 in his pocket, and he set up shop in Paradise Valley, Black Bottom. We still own the lot of land that they bought. And so now that we're in the new Paradise Valley and Black Bottom, it's very meaningful to us. So make sure that you stay in touch with us. We're going to celebrate the 90 years in so many different ways. We've had a long and fruitful relationship with the Detroit Auto Show. For 10 years, we had a program called Driven, where we highlighted the best and the brightest in the African-American community in the auto show. We had a 10-year run, and hopefully we can bring that back one day. And so the Michigan Chronicle and Real Times Media, we very much appreciate what the auto show means to Detroit in this region. And so we're really, really excited about being here, being back where we belong. And when Sam and Dennis called me about the possibility of doing this, I was just super excited because, this is such a meaningful experience for us. So I'd like to bring up Mr. Sam Clement. He is the executive director of the Detroit Auto Show and the Detroit Auto Dealers Association. Please welcome him.
Yeah, don't get me sick. I got some stuff to do this week. Well, welcome. I'm really proud of this partnership and this relationship. Hiram and his team have been excellent, and Dennis has been a huge confidant for me over the last year when I took over for the show. At the auto show, we really are trying to inject some new life into it. We know what this show means to the city, to this region, the economic impact that it has, the jobs it creates, the attention it gives to the city over these, really 6 weeks. And so to have a relationship with an institution like the Michigan Chronicle and to bring that into the fold was critically important. We want to have these conversations here. Our show is a stage for the city to show itself off and to have the conversations about how to move us forward as a collective. And so what you're about to hear today, I think, is a huge part of that. We think this is the start of something really special, and we hope that this is going to be the start of really a great 2 weeks here, showing the best of the city of Detroit. So again, thank you all for being here. We hope we have a great auto show. Hopefully we'll see a lot of you all tomorrow and over the next 10 days after that. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay.
Thanks. Please give Sam another round of applause, please. I forgot the TV cameras were here. I wouldn't have cursed like that, but too late. Too late. All right, I want to bring up my friend, business partner, and Dennis has been the moderator for Pancakes and Politics at least 10 years now. And I've been impressed with his ability to bring the issues down to a very complex issues down to, a conversation piece and simplify them. We have a great panel today. We wanted people to really experience this panel. So thanks to HAP, we were able to put out some complimentary tickets. Thank you, HAP. We really appreciate that because we're trying to expand the reach of Pancakes and Politics. So without further ado, please welcome Mr. Dennis Archer, Jr., Chairman of 1642 Ventures.
Yeah. Usually I would give Hiram a hug, but he says he's sick. So I'm going to leave that alone. Good morning, everyone. And let me thank everyone for braving the storms here. And let me also say it's interesting because we keep talking about black folks. And, 90 years ago, we needed this for us, just like we needed Black Bottom and Paradise Valley for us. And Harlem was to New York for us, but things have evolved across geographies as well as media outlets. So in that regard, I would like to give all the white folks a round of applause for being here. Appreciate y'all. Without further ado, so we can jump right into the conversation, and I appreciate those at home that are tuning in and those of you that have gotten down here. But let me bring to the stage our three panelists. I'm very excited about our discussion today. The first to come up is Jared Fleischer, a very dear friend who is CEO of Bedrock. Jared, come on up. I'm going to read, Jared, so I don't shortchange you, because I know what I would say if it was just me up here talking. But Jared is focused on driving impactful development, cultivating public and private partnerships, and attracting businesses and talent to both Detroit and Cleveland. And I think the evidence of your work is very, very clear, and we appreciate you. Thank you, Jared. Next is Wayne County Executive Warren Evans. One of the things I'm to talk to Warren about is the breadth of his responsibility in the county, because I think, unfortunately, far too often, the focus is on the city when, the county is a behemoth. It's a larger geography, there's more employees, it's a larger budget. So we're going to touch on that. But Warren, you have done a great job. You chose not to take the county into bankruptcy, and you've balanced the budget, and you've decreased any liabilities over the course of your tenure, so we appreciate your service. Next up is Chris Thomas from Assembly Ventures. Chris is Chris, it looks like a members only jacket. You got, I don't know if you remember that from back in the day.
Out of your closet.
Yeah, I do have that. I got it in navy blue too. Chris is co-founder and partner of Assembly Ventures. I'm going to say we because I actually am an investor, but we have offices in Detroit, Berlin, and Silicon Valley. He's a board member of probably my favorite portfolio company, Metropolis, as well as Digit, and serves on multiple boards. Prior to Assembly Ventures, he co-founded the Detroit Mobility Lab and Michigan Mobility. He has been steadfast after his career and service in the military, all about mobility. And we'll talk about it because mobility, when we think about it, we think about cars, maybe autonomous vehicles, but Chris will talk about the expansiveness of really what mobility means. Before we jump in, are there any elected officials here? If you're here, I know there are some here, please stand up and be acknowledged. We have some recent elections that have happened. 2 new city council people here, welcome. New police commissioner, welcome everyone. It's interesting for me coming to the auto show. I've been coming to Charity Preview since high school. A dear friend of mine, Chris Wilson, who's no longer with us, but his father was Porterfield Wilson. And Porterfield Wilson had 4 car dealerships, back in the 80s, well before people had multiple stores, definitely before black folks had multiple stores. And it was a big deal. They had a Bonneville limousine, and I would go to Chris's house on Strathcona and ride down, and they had drinks in the car. It was an amazing experience. And this is back where I think upwards of 12 or 15,000 people came down to Charity Preview. And to me, that's probably close to when, from an attendance standpoint, it was on its peak. Everybody got dressed up. I've got pictures of an embarrassing red jacket that went almost down to my knees that I wore. I thought I was fly. But times have changed, guys, and the show has changed. It's much more experiential. The automobile ecosystem has changed. The impact, the global impact of our competitors, when we used to be extraordinarily dominant, is changing day by day. And Chris, I know you're very passionate about us fighting back as it relates to China's growth in that place. But, talk to me, and we can just go straight down, starting with you, Jared, but talk to me about, from your opinion, the historical impact of the automobile industry on this geography related to your business and your leadership, Mr. Executive, and your investments. Chris, historical, what it looked like, what it looks like now, and what role you see it playing related to your entities going forward. Jared, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So,
And I'm going to take these rubbers off my shoes, too. I just noticed these wrong. Sorry. All right, go ahead.
I did notice those. I
Yeah,
thought, interesting stylistic choice. Tomorrow we have a little bit of an event at the Hudson site to welcome General Motors in their new global world headquarters to Hudson's. And I've been thinking a lot about what to say, and because I have to give a little bit of remarks. And what really dawned on me is pride and thankfulness. I think, we're all in it every day, so you can take it for granted. But, we have 3 of the great industrial corporations in the world headquartered in our region. In our case, we have the General Motors Corporation headquartered not just in our city, but in our building. And we have the Ford Motor Company, who made a tremendous investment in Michigan Central, not a mile and a half away. So, I can't overstate, the significance that we have a bedrock of the global economy, no pun intended, in our urban core, in our city, in our region. And it also makes me think this, that the auto industry, kind of more than any time in recent history, has become subject to some politicization, really around, electric vehicles and, the government's policies to incentivize them and just going in that direction. And listen, there's a lot of very important strategic questions about electric vehicles. Should we lean into a comparative advantage in ICE or, compete globally with China on EVs? And what's the timing and the pace of adoption? But what I think fundamentally we cannot do is let our bedrock industry be politicized. It would be like, as I saw some of it happen, I think, imagine if you're in Kentucky and, they're talking this kind of about the bourbon industry. Right. You wouldn't see it. We have to realize that, Warren
happens to love bourbon, by the way.
Hey, I love bourbon. I love bourbon.
So, I love it as much as I do.
So I just hope that, we can, there should always be accountability, and everybody, needs to never get a free pass. But I think we need to remember that this is a foundation of our region and, frankly, our country's industrial base.
Warren, you have 1.8 million people in your geography throughout the county, and you've got tens of thousands of those, if not hundreds of thousands of those, that work related to the industry. You've got millions of square feet of OEM and supplier and supportive industries in the automotive ecosystem. Talk about the importance of that today and how you see it evolving going forward.
Yeah, critically important. Thank you for the question. Critically important in terms of the historical context. I mean, there's no question but that Detroit is on the map because of the automotive industry, and the automotive industry has been doing well with the assistance of the municipalities, the county, and others. The thing that sticks in my mind the most is the transition into the new, whatever that turns out to be, auto industry, whether it's gas or EV. Early on, $5 a day, you didn't have to have skills. People worked. People were able to own homes because they could make a living wage. People were able to buy automobiles because they could make a living wage. The skills of the future are critically important for us to be prepared for, and quite frankly, I'm not sure I see that growing at a level that will allow us to do what we need to do in the future. So the skills training is critical, and it's not to say that we don't have skills training program out there, but they're kind of ad hoc. There are 1 million people who have a program. Whether the program connects with the people who need it or not, I think is somewhat shaky. And I don't think that the emphasis is there at the level that it ought to be. I'm really concerned about that growth going forward. If Wayne County residents, and by the way, the sheriff always says, for those who don't understand, Detroit is in Wayne County. Mm-hmm. Wayne County ain't in Detroit.
Right.
Okay. So, but the ability to foster the growth that we want doesn't allow us to be able to gloss over the chronically unemployed, poor folks that are out there. We don't admit it, but we do all we can on the periphery. But we're not doing enough, I don't think, for the substance of people who were once gainfully employed and able to own homes and that sort of thing. So that's kind of, where I see we have to focus going forward.
Thank you. Chris, and we're going to come back to workforce and education. That's very important. But Chris, related to, from an investment standpoint, not only an investment ecosystem, but seeing how your portfolio companies operate in an urban environment like Wayne County, like the city of Detroit. Talk to us about what this looks like today and what you see the future looks like. And I will add for you, what do we need to change or get ahead of for that future to be successful?
Sure. I think this past-future dichotomy that you're hearing is the right one. And we can't deny how powerful automotive broadly has been to this region. My grandfathers were a steel worker and a high-low driver at GM for 35 years. Automotive has touched millions upon millions of families and people in our state over decades. And the reason Assembly Ventures exists, one of the reasons, is that we have this strong belief that the world is bifurcating between East and West, beginning with the U.S. and China. Not that novel today, but novel 5-10 years ago when we first started thinking through that thesis. And the opportunity for manufacturing, logistics, and supply chain opportunities as a result of onshoring or allied shoring. And then two, this very real belief that the industrial centers of the legacy economic West. So think Detroit, Pittsburgh, Torino, Stuttgart, Tokyo, Seoul. And if we take the resources we have in these places today and we invest not only in our legacy manufacturing, but in the new technologies we need, these places can remain relevant for our families, for our neighbors, for the people we care about. But it goes to that last part of the question, Dennis. What is automotive? Automotive cannot be what it was. I love that, and this is just to be clear about my jacket, just to clear this up before we go any further. There's amazing merch on the floor this year, and every year I'm a big merch guy, and every year I'm like, I don't know, didn't really hit the members, the jacket I'm looking for. It's outstanding, so if you get a chance to get on the floor, buy it. But what it says here is that there's only one Motor City, and that's true. But what are we going to be next? And automotive and mobility cannot just be looking at passenger cars and trucks. We define mobility as the physical and digital movement of people, goods, data, and energy across air, land, sea, and space. Automotive is a huge part of it. We're lucky to count as our investors amazing families in automotive, amazing global companies, many in this region in automotive. But for this show to thrive, for our city to thrive, for our people to thrive, we have to think bigger. We have to be creating the talent that we're going to require to make sure that we're not just doing everything we're doing in manufacturing, which is unbelievable and we need to own, but we need to be very focused on what we're going to be. And I think that's one of the big questions that I get excited about. Before we can make this future, what are we going to be today? What are we going to lock arms in this room and say, we're going to win? That's going to allow us to do just that.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so I'm both reading and listening to podcasts from a guy named Eric Thomas. I don't know if some of you may be familiar. He calls himself the hip-hop preacher. But he's phenomenal. And one of the things that I heard him say earlier in the week was how he's a few years younger than me, but when he was a kid growing up, 8, 9, 10, you dreamed about in the neighborhoods in Detroit in this instance, you would go and get a job at an automotive manufacturer, you'd work for the requisite amount of years, and then you would retire. And your whole thought process growing up was that you would make money and get that American dream by working with your hands. And he's saying that fast forward to today, that's no longer the case. You've got to learn to work with your mind. And, one of the things that I agree with the executive, there are some schools that perhaps have some of the right education to make us globally competitive, to have our kids be globally competitive. There are multiple skilled trades opportunities, some run by community colleges like Wayne County Community College District. The unions have skilled trades programs. But who should own that? Because it is very disjointed, and I think that it is not servicing all who need to be serviced. And from my opinion, it needs to start. You know, we got a Yale guy and a Harvard guy up here, so you guys are smarter than I am. But where should this start? Because it has to happen in the elementary schools and throughout the public schools, and it has to happen in the skilled trades area. Should there be a parent entity that owns this? And Warren, I know you're very passionate about this and getting people the right skill sets. What's your opinion?
Extremely political issue, and that's why it's as fragmented as it is now. I strongly believe that there has to be somebody that has superintending control of the process. And I think we are really remiss if we delude ourselves into thinking that we're doing well with K through 12 education and with skills training. And I think also, and some of my great friends in labor will probably argue with me about this, is having skilled trades and recruiting people to skilled trades does not get minorities into the skilled trades. There is a washout process. There's a washout process, and I won't try to impugn motive, but many young African-American men look for skilled trades jobs, wash out in the process for reasons that I don't think are appropriate reasons, and then are labeled later that they don't want a job because they don't continue to come to the charade that was supposed to be enticing them in the first place. And so, you know, I think there's some internal game playing that we as a culture do, and there's more work we need to do to tie education together. I mean, we're okay now. We've got, you know, plenty of engineers graduating from college, and, you know, we're still, I think, a player in that space. But if I look at K through 12 and the relevance of community college classes to the jobs that are needed, there's a real gap there.
Mm-hmm. Chris or Jared?
I mean, I would just say something you said at the very beginning, Warren. We have a multitude of organizations, hundreds, maybe thousands, that are servicing many of the same things. How do we use those resources more effectively to ensure that we're actually adjudicating this mission? And we're not spreading dollars and people and effort across ways in which we maybe could come in a much bigger and a much more forceful way. That's something in the nonprofit sector especially I spent a lot of time thinking about and actually adjudicating over the last decade. I'd love to see people in this room say, these are the organizations we care about most. Let's make sure that we're focused on funding and letting those programs thrive. That's something I think we could do a better job of.
Thank you. Jay?
You know, in the premise of your question was, you know, how the changing technology in our economy is changing workforce. I actually believe that the most revolutionary technology is artificial intelligence. And yes, while there will be some manifestation of that in robotics, actually the greatest implication of it will probably be in some of your entry-level white collar. And I actually think where you will have more opportunity than ever, where the economy will have a need and reward more than ever, will be on folks who can build things and fix things with their hands, which is what Bill Ford said actually at Michigan Central a few months ago when he said, we've got 5,000, you know, folks who work with their hands. We can't fill the positions. And the Wall Street Journal just talked about, you know, a master mechanic fixing a transmission making $160,000 a year. They can't find them. Who's going to, you know, the data centers, we'll be building data centers, all this stuff. Who's going to build them? You know, I think there will be more relative demand than ever for folks who can build things with their hands and fix things with their hands in very remunerative careers. And so what do we do about that? You got to get kids younger and capture their hearts and minds. Our education is too, you know, across the board, classical. It needs to, I use two words, it's got to be relevant and resonant, okay, to kids. And you got to get in that. You're competing with TikTok, which is dopamine in 30-second, you know, spurts. And we're like, here's a 400-page textbook. What are we doing? We got to get in. We got to get in and sell these kids on these careers, starting in middle school, high school, you know, with literally, you know, a campaign, like a corporation, when you want to get a kid hooked on a product. We need that approach. And then the county executive and I have talked about this. He's right about governance, but I think equally important is methodology. And we need industry and school districts and community college districts to partner on curriculum that is directly relevant to jobs. They need to provide summer internships. I'll just give you a quick example. They dealt with this in Texas at an industrial boom. They didn't have folks, skilled for it in in aerospace, for example. They have Boeing there and Pratt Whitney and all this, and they didn't have talent for it. So what happened? The aerospace industry worked with the San Antonio School District and the Community College District. They designed specific curriculum so people could go to the aerospace industry. Boeing gave them jobs in the summer internships. Disadvantaged kids, they got community college credit for this. So they graduated from high school with a community college degree. It was all paid for jointly. They went to work for Boeing in the summer. They went to work for Boeing afterwards. Boeing then paid to upskill them. They worked so well, they made one of these academies in cybersecurity and heavy equipment manufacturing. It was industry working with the education community, looking at the future economy, designing curriculum for the future economy, providing the jobs, providing the internships. Unless industry is at the table and you actually have this kind of, very direct programmatic approach, I don't think we're doing what we need to be doing.
It's interesting you bring that up, and I want to say we have Nick Monticelli, our dear friend from WDIV, who is here, and shortly we're going to take questions from the audience, so just kind of wave your hand and get his attention if you want to participate. Detroit has done, in the county, has done a good job, I think, at partnering on different issues at different times with corporate Detroit. There are those scions or leaders, call them what you will, that step up when asked. And it's interesting that you bring that up and you provide Boeing and I guess Seattle as an example. Lilly does it in Indianapolis. I don't think there's been that same call to action around this issue yet. And so that's not to volunteer you to do more stuff, your hands are full. But I think there needs to be that call to action. And to the executive's point, if it's not a superintendent technically that is technically responsible for this, but there is someone who has stepped up, whether it's a corporate leader or a retired educator who says, I'm going to helm this and kind of herd the cats. Because I think if not, it's just going to happen in these disparate silos. But Jared, let me stick with you for a second. You've hit the ground running in your position. We'll love just an update regarding what's going to happen on the riverfront real time, because I know it's evolving. But what's most interesting to me is, I've heard you now a couple of times in public and in private talk about the openness and desire to partner with developers and to kind of broaden who participates with Bedrock. When you guys started back 15 or 16 years ago, acquiring properties and moving down here, the portfolio, as we all know, is tremendous. And, as I understand it, I think your approach is like, hey, we came down, we set a foundation, we've got control, but now we don't have to do this all of ourselves. We're interested in partnering, maybe we'll divest of something. Talk about what that looks like, and then there's a ton of entrepreneurs in here who I think would love to participate. And so what does that look like, and how do we find out what the opportunities are?
Great question. So, how do you move our regional economy forward? Obviously, a big piece of it is what Chris works on every day, which is, how do we drive innovation in our manufacturing and tech? A huge part of it is what the county executive works on every day. And I'll just emphasize, everything I spoke of relative to, training and workforce programs, but taking them to the next level. The county executive is the key leader on. For our part at Bedrock, how do you move the regional economy forward with a strong Detroit? A strong Detroit. The reality is we have a pretty vibrant region, right? We're home to these three of the largest industrial corporations in the world and their supply bases. We've got 4 million people in our region. But we have a center city, a core, that now it's had a decade of a great comeback, but that's after 50 years of decline. So how do we move our regional economy forward? We have to continue to strengthen Detroit. And we have a new mayor in Mary Sheffield that, I think absolutely gets it and is committed to expanding progress, farther and wider in the city. We plan to do everything we can to support that. The urban core, though, of any city, though, its nucleus of a cell, think about it that way, still is the engine, the economic engine for its city. And so, we continue to be committed to taking our urban core, our nucleus, to the next level. The riverfront is our next frontier in doing that. Just ask folks to imagine, what our economy, and I see my friends from Visit Detroit here, what our power as a visitor destination could be, our talent attraction, if we had the best riverfront in the country. Instead of Chicago or Seattle or New York or whatever it is, wow, it's Detroit. And we're talking, 30 acres to start and going on to the whole riverfront. So this is a big play. But in that and in other things we're doing, we want to do it in partnership. The reality is, my view is, I guess, twofold. My view, first of all, is relative to our existing, everything we currently own. We own an awful lot. Some of our existing assets, maybe we don't need to own them, and we can create a healthier market with more buyers and sellers. Maybe with some of the stuff in our core footprint that we've been sitting on for a little bit, that it's time to, JV inclusively to see them redeveloped. And then just in general, what is our comparative advantage? Our comparative advantage is that we have the most generous person I've ever met in my life, and a visionary, Dan Gilbert, who's willing to deploy patient capital at scale. That's our comparative advantage. Our comparative advantage isn't necessarily in executing. And by that I mean we're one entity. An army is often better than a singular force. So let's partner. Let's leverage our comparative advantage, which is the willingness to deploy patient capital at scale. Let's get more people involved. Let's build more. Let's build faster, and let's bring more people up in doing it.
Yeah, thank you. That's huge, and I think that model, and particularly the fact that you mentioned that you are intentionally going to be inclusive as you look to that, is important to this audience. But we talk about the riverfront, and then Nick, if you're getting ready, I'm going to kick it to you in a second. But when we talk about the riverfront, you got to get there. So are you going to get there on 375 that gets off on Jefferson west or east, or are you going to get off the freeway at Mack Avenue? And a big discussion over the past several years has been raising 375. I think a lot of us in the room understand that the development of the expressway in the first place went smack dab through black neighborhoods and obliterated the culture and sense of community that was there, that was started because we were redlined from living in other neighborhoods. And so when people have talked about raising 375, and it's interesting because I think there's three different perspectives here. There's a governance perspective, there's an investor perspective, there's a mobility and a resident perspective regarding that. So, what are your thoughts on, I guess, the most recent discussions around raising 375 and the positive or negative effect that may have? Warren?
Be happy to weigh in. MDOT does a good job of building roads. It doesn't do a good job of selling projects. And so the whole issue of 375 to me started out from a phony premise that pissed me off from day one, because they tried to sell it as somehow this was making up for destroying Paradise Valley and Black Bottom. And it didn't have anything to do with it. I mean, what does bringing it up to grade have to do with that? Doesn't mean the project's bad. I've never suggested that the project was bad. I've suggested that they did a very poor job of trying to sell it. And we've had some discussions since then, and quite frankly, the commitment was made to me. We'll talk to you before we jump off the next cliff, and we'll try to work with you. And in a couple of weeks, I read there was something else had been done. Of course, nobody had talked to us. So I'm not so sure that they know what they're doing. Having said that, Let me first say that working with Bedrock and others on projects is something that's not new to us, and they have been great partners along with others. So sometimes I can put a negative cast on something that's not really negative. It just is not growing in the right direction at the pace I think we probably would all like to see it grow. So, you know, there's nobody that's been better to work with in my tenure than Dan Gilbert. But, you know, when we talk about, you know, 375, I think people have to understand that it affects an awful lot of businesses. It's going to affect an awful lot of people. And the forums that were had were probably forums at a lower level to some extent than they should have been, because you had some players a little higher up that, you know, would like to talk about this thing too. And so it just gives me an opportunity to say I'm not negative on the project itself. You know, I need to figure out how we're going to pay for it. I need to figure out a bunch of things. I mean, if you look at Wayne County, you know, we have bridges here that are 130 years old. So much so that you can't find an architect to fix them. Those are the ingress and egress to the city and other places that are take, you know, they're 50, 60, $70 million projects in and of themselves. And so I still have to be concerned with, even if this project is good, is it the best use of hundreds of millions of dollars when there are projects that are critically important other places? Right. If we could do them all, you know. So I don't want to be negative about it, but I do get personally offended when you use a project like that and you try to sell it based on some reparations or some ideas. Just, you know, that still makes me, you know, scoot around in my chair a little bit. But, you know, it is what it is, but we're still positive going forward. You know, I'm not trying to be a naysayer. I'm trying to be a team player, but we got to have a team that's major league. You know, I don't need anybody playing Class A ball.
Yeah. Very good analogy. Jared, 100 plus properties, most of which are west of I-75 and 375. Clearly there would be an impact to the portfolio. Have you all, or have you taken a position one way or the other yet? What are your thoughts?
You know, I'll be very honest. When I think they were trying to figure out the old plan, they came to us and they said, listen, you know, we're not so sure about this thing. Where are you on it? I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 5. You know, I think the county executive is right in everything that he said about the prior plan. You know, the new incarnation of it, you know, I think has a lot more merit to it. The new incarnation basically says first of all, we're not going to sell it as, you know, the social justice play of the 21st century, and we're also going to scale it back. Instead of, you know, starting the boulevardization, you know, up, you know, at the way up at the interchange, the new plan is to start it and crash it. The logic is that, to the county executive's other point, the bridge is over 375 and crash it, and Lafayette, Jefferson actually are failing and will need to be replaced. So you don't have the impacts of everybody trying to go to Ford Field and all that. You start to the south of that, and it's the, you know, the project is 1/4 scale and ambition. But, you know, from Gratiot to the riverfront to Jefferson, it does bring it to grade, and does provide access to the riverfront. So I think I share the view that there's the question of, is this the highest and best use of resources? That's a great question, the right question. In and of itself, I think it's become a much more meritorious project.
Chris, what are your thoughts from a couple? I mean, I think that you're familiar with some people that live over in that Lafayette Park area.
I live right there.
Well, I didn't want to, you know, throw you out there like that. So, but yes, you live right there. So, you know, the sentiment of the neighborhood organizations, condo associations, et cetera, but also what opportunity from a mobility standpoint does this plan offer?
So I walk everywhere downtown. I love Detroit. Detroit is beautiful. Our state is beautiful. I love what you said. It's all about best use. Again, going back to that dichotomy of past and future. What are we going to do today that's the best use of dollars, of safety, of families, of community, of our city for our children and grandchildren? That's where we have to focus. So I've been investing in global mobility for 17 years now, which makes me feel very old. ITS, Intelligent Transportation Systems, traffic safety is a component part of that. How do we ensure that these bridges are up to grade, which they're not? How do we ensure that mothers and children and families that are crossing are safe? How do we make sure deaths are at the lowest they can be, not only for pedestrians, but also for people in vehicles? These are the questions we have to start with. This has to be the premise. And I think we, as a community, as a city, as a state, we have to be very focused on best use for all of our people in a genuine way, today and every day that comes from now. I'll stop there. I mean, I can't speak for the sentiment of my neighborhood or my community, but I can tell you definitively that I have 2 young boys and a lovely wife that tolerates me, and I want them to be safe. And I think that's where we have to start.
Very good answer. Nick, way over here. Nick Monticelli from Channel 4.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I think you have to get 3 more members-only jackets and take a ice cream photo, right? There you go. Okay, our first question is coming from Nicole Sherrard Freeman.
Super, thanks so much. Good morning. First of all, hats off to Real Times Media and WDIV for this conversation, and to Dennis for the way that you moderate. Gentlemen, I intentionally seated my table this morning with people who care a lot about, I'm going to circle back to your conversation about K-12 education and higher ed and workforce and the like. So this table is seated with people who care very much about that, including the mayor's new chief of staff, David Bowser, and the woman who runs workforce for the city now. Real talk, if you would, for a moment. You speak with such conviction about governance and methodology and relevance of content. It is so inspiring. You speak with such conviction. Are you aware of a coalition of the willing across government, business, whichever sectors you've been in conversation with, who are ready to move on what you've described right now?
I can honestly say no. Not like I ought to. And part of that is I call it the disconnect of us do-gooders. We all really want to do good things. But there's so many silos, and I don't think they're intended to be silos. They're just, this person doesn't know that person and get with it. As it relates to K through 12 education, it's really important to me that we do a better job of it consistently, whether it's Detroit Public Schools or whether it's Wayne Risa out county. I don't know how much collaboration there is between the school districts. Jared and I, for example, are talking now about an aviation project that we'd like to build into the schools because we have a world-class airport and we don't have a world-class feeder for those jobs. So I want you to know that my office is receptive to talking on a more substantial basis with those agencies and those people trying to do something that makes sense, because government certainly has a role in it. And whatever that role is, I can't produce it if I don't understand it.
And I love this question because it's all about how do we get action? How do we stop talking? How do we start doing? So I'm not aware of a coalition of the willing. I'm aware of a confederation of the willing. To your point, there's lots of siloed efforts, but how are we working together to actually make sure that not only K through 12, but as we go through our great state institutions, but especially Wayne State, my co-founder at Assembly, Jessica Robinson, and I, prior to this, founded the Detroit Mobility Lab and the Michigan Mobility Institute. With that, we actually founded the first robotics degree at Wayne State. We did this at Wayne State on purpose. We wanted to see those students coming from our city, coming into our city with great jobs. But there's an importance of mentality that I think we need to keep in mind. We recently did a study on workforce looking at younger Americans, and one of the questions was, what do you most aspire to be? What do you want your career to be? Can anyone guess the number one answer? Say again? Yes, influencer. The number one job that our youth wants to be is an influencer. We influence what our children want to be. And we need to lean into, on a K-12 basis and with our organizations, around the importance of manufacturing, the importance of technology, the importance of the things that are going to allow us to not be Detroit versus everybody, but Detroit powers everybody. Detroit powers our city and our state and our country and the world. And I think as we think about the comeback story that we've had for so long, we have done great things, but we have to double down and continue to just be unbelievably dedicated to doing the work that ensures this place can be so much better than it is today.
I got to speak to that too. So the answer is no. What Chris said is so important because it reinforces what we're competing with. We're competing with, the dopamine machine of TikTok, okay? And then, we're in schools and it's like, here, read, Pride and Prejudice, 400 pages of English people talking, from 500 years ago. It's not going to work, guys. So the best example of workforce development that I ever saw in action in Michigan was led by a woman named Nicole Sherrard Freeman when we were opening, not we, but the city was opening the Stellantis plant on Mack Avenue. And it was a very, very specific employment opportunity. And so the recruitment and let me help you pass the test that you need to pass, right? It was directly connected to industry. And the work of the workforce entity was so logically connected to the outcome, okay? But that's a one-off. I think, in general, our approach to education, our approach to workforce is this just like, across the board peanut butter, and therefore you don't get anything out of it. I think the whole debate, frankly, even about education, which is about, should we grade them A through F? How should we grade them? More money, less money? How does the money go? It's all nonsense unless you talk about fundamentally changing how we educate, how we connect to kids. Yeah. And unless we do that in a manner, in my view, that directly has employers and, what the future jobs will be at the table, designing curriculum, providing the opportunities, and selling them to kids, these kind of full-range partnerships. I mean, it's like if a medical school wasn't affiliated with a hospital, We have to do that. Until we do it, we're, in my opinion, we're having meaningless reform discussions.
Thank you, Nicole, for a question. Nick, another?
Right in the middle here. Because I have the microphone, I'm going to take a liberty here. Are there any lawmakers in the audience? And there's our problem. Oh, there we go. One here. But there's our issue. One of them. If we're going to fix the education problem, at least in my opinion, it has to start legislatively so we can change what mandates are in those K-12 classrooms. Okay, Antoine Bryant.
Thank you, Nick. Great conversation. First of all, I'm glad just to hear the focus on aeronautics and aerospace engineering. As a father of a graduating high school senior who chose to major in aerospace engineering this fall, I'm glad to know he'll have a job 4 or 5 years from now. So we appreciate that. To all the parents that have high school kids, if you take your child's phone at 10 p.m., it is a game changer. And so my son has to turn his phone in like this is prison. So that's what we do in the Bryant household. One of the things that I think about, we can all agree in this room, is that Detroit, specifically in Wayne County in general, is far different now than it was 5 years ago. And I think in the work that many of us are doing, we're looking forward to what Detroit 5 years from today will look like. One of the things we look at when cities are growing, many of our younger people are looking for a city where they can be connected and they can move around without their cars, even if they do have their cars. Even though this city has been built on automotive industry, and it still will be moving forward, what other ideas can you all continue to gather behind using coverage at scale to ensure that our residents are more connected than ever, especially in a multimodal transportation.
Chris, you want to lead with that?
Sure. There's a belief that if you build more roads, you will always have more access, but it never happens because the cars just fill it up. I would offer to you, and this is empirically proven, that as we continue to build on the riverfront, as we continue to think about multimodality in a truly holistic way, to the point you're making, we can actually have a city that allows us to move every day to win, to move the world, and make sure that our young residents to our old residents can walk, can bike, can scooter, can e-bike, can be a part of everything that's happening in Greater Detroit. We have to be honest that this is going to be a transitional exercise. And I think sometimes there's a 0-to-1 mentality, which doesn't work. If we think about energy transition, we're going to use all of our energy to get to a better place with regard to how we create and how we use. When we think about mobility transition, it has to be that as well. But I think one of the big things we lean into from an infrastructure perspective is making sure that from a bike lane perspective, from a walkway perspective, from a safe streets perspective, going back to what I talked about earlier, we need to design with the citizen in mind. We need to design with the pedestrian in mind. And sometimes that citizen's in a car, and that's okay. But all too often, as we drive around the east side and the west side, there are many, many intersections and roads that there's not one thought put to that person that's walking on the road. There's a lot more we can do from that perspective, but it's going to take time to build that out. The other thing I would say is the more that we, as a community, as a city, as a state, can ensure that we're utilizing all these things that are available to us. I'm guilty as anybody. I go to the mode that I love the most. For me, it's walking. I walk everywhere. I drive when I need to, and I don't mind driving. I like driving. But how do we get people experiencing differentiated modes as well? The Riverwalk, again, I think is going to be a big part of that. We have a chance to change behavior and change ways in which they're working and moving. But part of it's planning, part of it's technology, part of it's asking your neighbor to go for a walk, and just getting out there and just spending some time with people. That one of the things I love about Detroit, about Michigan, is I think we do that better than most. So I challenge all of you this year, as one of your many New Year's resolutions. Ask someone you haven't gone on a walk with or a bike ride with to go. That's going to change in a big way how we move.
Led right into a real passionate thing for me, and this is the year, and that's transportation, mass transportation, the transportation bill. Wayne County is the only county in the region that has opt-out communities. So Wayne County has 43 communities, 17 of them opt out of transportation. And so even if it's bus transportation, you're going around cities and that sort of stuff, which makes the transportation very, very difficult. I mean, I grew up in an age where you died to get a car by the time you were 16. You had to have one. Young people today, it's not that big an issue. And so for the entire county, there are communities that are aging. And as much as I'd like to say their kids will stay there, they won't. Their kids want to come to the city where it's happening. Mm-hmm. They don't want to drive, or don't particularly want to drive. And so getting rid of the opt-out communities, which will be a vote this year, will allow us on the path of having a coordinated transit system that can move people from outlying communities into Detroit for the things that they want to go and do. And I mean, it's strange when you get a certain age, you saw Detroit as they envisioned it 50 years ago.
That's right.
Their kids don't envision it the same way. The parents don't want to come to Detroit. The kids can't wait, they're dying to get to Detroit. And so to help create those transportation vehicles for them, I think is going to be critical for downtown. And in other areas, it's critical getting people to employment. Mm-hmm. Most of my career was law enforcement. I've had days when I'd stop 10 drivers and not one of them had a driver's license, because they couldn't afford a car, really. So they had a junker over there. They didn't really have a driver's license. They didn't have insurance. People think of that as just people out joyriding for the heck of it. No, quite often they're trying to get to work. They're trying to get to school. And by the time they do get to school, if the police don't stop them, they're a nervous wreck because they've been sweating. You know, you ever watch somebody when a police car rides by them, you see how their necks shrink? Oh my God, am I going to get stopped? We've got to do something about that. Being able to get able-bodied young people to school, to employment. And we can't forget about our senior citizens either, who need to be able to get to doctor's appointments and that sort of stuff. So we've got to get rid of this opt-out community stuff. It's got to be it won't get fixed this year in total, but if we can't get transportation passed, it's not going to get fixed.
One aside. Yeah, absolutely. One aside building from that is, I think, going back to the comment around best use, we have historical paradigms of public transportation. Many of those are not serving our citizens in the way they need to. Recently, Waymo announced that their most recent deployment is going to be in Detroit. We have May Mobility and other autonomous assets that are in Detroit. Autonomy has been something that's been coming for 10 years, and then 10 years later it's still coming. But ladies and gentlemen, it's coming. And it's deploying in a real way in cities around the world, but especially in the United States and now here in Detroit. When we think about best use, when we think about the public purse, if we can have autonomous vehicles that are being used 80, 90% of the time that can serve our citizens for all the use cases you just went through, County Executive, medical appointments, getting to work, and they can do so in a public-private partnership model that's less cost and better service for our residents. We need to lean into new technologies and new ways to think about public transit that will be cost less or equal to, but can serve many more in greater ways.
Thank you. Kathy Nett has sent me about 3 text messages telling me that our time is up. But, you know, as we close, well, first of all, I want to say there is a ticket outside at the table for every person in here if you want to go walk onto the auto show floor this morning before you leave, courtesy of Sam Clement. So thank you, Sam, for that. You know, in closing, I'd ask you guys to maybe give 1 or 2 ideas around. We keep talking about population growth, population loss. The city of Detroit has eked out for the past 2 or 3 years some population gain, which is phenomenal. The state, as I think, is still bleeding population. Excuse me. What are 1 or 2 things, each of you, we can start with Jared and go down, that we need to do to keep on a trend of attracting and growing our population?
I mean, I'll give you one, but I also want to make clear, I see no utility in the debate of, you know, it's this versus that. I mean, we need to do all of these things, but the one that, you know, we focus on most at Bedrock is a fundamental belief that place matters. If you look at how communities became economic juggernauts, from Denver to Austin to Nashville. Look at where those places were 20 years ago. Look at where they are today. Why did people move there? A variety of factors. Fundamental to it was place. Mobile people, particularly young people, wanted to be there because it was a cool place to be. And Nashville started off as a haven for bachelor, bachelorettes parties and country music. More people said, wow, that's a cool place, fun place. Boom, tech juggernaut. Because talent wanted to go there and business follows talent. And so everything that Bedrock does is about building an incredible, extraordinary, world-class place here in Detroit, leveraging the incredible bones and advantages of this city and its river and its architecture to make it a place where if you're a young person graduating from college, graduating from the University of Michigan, I want to be there. That's a cool place to live, work, and play.
Thank you.
I think Jared has, you know, probably said it all. The ability for this region, you know, to grow and continue is, you know, directly related to the growth that we're already seeing. Wayne County has gained some population because Detroit has. I mean, we are a region that feeds off each other, and you know, I have 42 other communities, but people don't come to Wayne County for those other 42 communities. They may want to reside there, but they're coming for the energy that is in Detroit and is downtown Detroit, and that is what's going to draw younger people, but the opportunities for them to do things, as we've talked for the last, I don't know how long we've talking, are also critical. You know, so I think that's it. We've got to keep evolving as a downtown. We've got to keep evolving as a region together. And by the way, Oakland and Macomb County are much more involved with us now, Wayne County and Detroit, than they were 10 years ago. And so I see, people seeing a region, and if it's mobile enough for people to get from one place to the other in the region, it's nothing but good for us collectively.
Chris, final word.
No, I agree with all that. I think the way that we solve the challenge of our population in the city and the state, the way that we solve any challenge is unremitting effort. And I don't say that as a throwaway. How are we in this room, leaders of our community, doing something every day to make something 1% better, to make it a little better? And if we dedicate ourselves to that unremitting effort, not only looking outward, but looking inward, how do I get a little better every day? That gives me the ability and hopefully the platform with which to do great things for the people and the places I care about. And that is Detroit, and that is Michigan, and that is our country. And I think sometimes we forget that, sometimes I forget that. But if we can start there, winning is a habit, and we will continue to win, and we will build the community that we want people to be to. And I'll leave you with this small story. I was at dinner last night with one of our companies with my team, Austin-based, one of the leading, if not the leading, humanoid robotic business in the world. They're actually right below us demoing private demos for global automotive C-suite over the course of yesterday and today. And he had seen the show. We were at dinner at Joe Muir's. And he turned to me, he's like, maybe we should open an office here. And I was like, maybe you should. But why did he say that? He said that because of the people. He said that of the way because he was treated. He said because of what he saw outside on that very snowy evening. We have something very special. And it's up to us to make sure that other people understand just how special it is.
Thank you. Again, I want to reiterate Hiram's sentiment at the outset, really thanking you all for being warriors and braving the weather to get here this morning. I want to thank the Detroit Auto Dealers Association under the leadership of Sam Clement for allowing us to host here, and thank our teams at Ignition Media Group and Real Times Media for putting together a fabulous event, and the employees of the Huntington Place. Thank you for having us. Again, there are tickets outside the door for any of you that want to go and visit the showroom floor. I think I've been in there 3 times already. Beautiful vehicles. They've done an outstanding job executing this year. Thank you for being here and enjoy your day.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Pancakes and Politics here in Detroit. I guess this is my camera now. So we're here at the Auto Show for this special edition of Local 4 Live. We're going to kind of wrap up and talk about all the things that were discussed during this conversation. Chris Thomas is here with Assembly Ventures, the panelist that was on the far right side of your screen as we had that conversation. It seemed like of the overarching things, education, skilled trades was maybe number one.
Absolutely.
I hate to say our deficits, but maybe it's strong enough and we could just start saying it that way because maybe we'll start paying more attention to it. Where do you think our number one deficits are in terms of that? And why aren't we having more robust conversations about the holes in the pipeline for talent?
I think deficits is a tough framing.
Sure.
I think we want to frame this in terms of what do we need to do, but we certainly have challenges, and we need to be honest about those challenges. But I think it all begins with how do we coordinate resources, how do we coordinate efforts, and how do we decide what we want to be today that's going to enable us to be what we want to be tomorrow. And that comes back to getting trades back into school, getting the stigma of trades, just kind of doing away with it altogether, understanding that the future is going to be building and working with our hands, and makers are going to be able to succeed and build great things, not just here in Detroit and Michigan, but around our country. It's a mentality piece, but it's a programmatic piece as well that we need to, as a society, fund, structure, and engage on correctly.
As you look at your clients, the ventures that are working on, is that a common conversation that we have these goals, but we don't see enough people that can do the work underneath of them?
The common conversation amongst early stage technology businesses is where is talent? So it's not necessarily looking at, what the previous 12, 15 years grow that talent? Where did it come from? Where's the talent today? So we're
That was the theme for you, all about now. Today.
absolutely, and I think, well, it's about now, but what can we do now? The best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The second best time is right now. We need to be very honest about the fact that the future of entrepreneurship, the future of technology and manufacturing, it's going to go where the talent is. The talent, and so Detroit has unbelievable talent. We have an amazing ecosystem. We need to continue to build on that and be honest about our challenges and working to solve them every day.
You know, there was a great conversation too about the talent in Detroit and the youth now, which we start to say youth, and I start to feel old, and I'm older than I really want.
I hear you, my friend.
Is people, these kids want to be downtown. They want to live downtown. I think one of the challenges for them is going to be affordability.
I think affordability is a challenge everywhere.
Sure.
And when it comes to downtown, we have to be thinking about how are we building more housing. We have to be very honest about how are we ensuring that mobility options are plentiful. And that includes everything from low-cost vehicles and ensuring that we have our private auto insurance issues wrangled, but also looking at new ways, as I mentioned earlier. Like there's a huge opportunity from a walk-away from a multimodal perspective to connect the downtown core, but it's more than that. It's the broader city, it's the state. How are we really thinking holistically with best use of public dollars and empowering people with their own dollars to get to where they need to be and where they want to be?
I had Sam and Dennis on the show 2 days ago, and one of our conversations was about this kind of fine line that we seem to be dancing between retaining the great talent while also attracting the new, because we're trying to do both, right?
Absolutely. We must. How do we do both? We do both by allowing for and fostering great opportunities. So amongst our industry incumbents, they desperately want to hire and keep all the talent that's here. How are we ensuring that not only are we paying a fair wage, but wages that really are above norm for the region and for the country based on the great work that they're doing? But how are we having an entrepreneurial ecosystem? I think Ford Motor Company's done a great job at Michigan Central of really fostering these. What is the next Ford Motor Company? What is the next rocket? We need to be creating them right now, and they will be here in years and decades' time, employing hundreds, thousands of Detroiters, of Michiganders. But that is a key component. It can't be one or the other. It has to be both.
Yeah. My last question for you here is, do you think that the narrative of Detroit has changed enough where we can reach out across the country, across the world, to pull people in and say, not only is this a great place to work, but to live as well?
I think Detroit is the greatest city in the world. And I say that completely honestly. I live here. I love it here. I think Michigan is the greatest state in our country. Has it changed enough? I think that's the wrong question.
Okay.
I think what we have to be asking ourselves is what do we want to be going forward? Detroit versus everybody, I think, has served us well. We are a gritty, we are a proud city and a proud citizenry that is a part of Detroit and the greater Detroit area. But I want Detroit to power everyone. I want Detroit to power our state, our country, and the automotive technology, the broader mobility technology, and everything else that the great things we have going in on our university centers at Michigan State, Michigan, and Detroit and otherwise. That mentality it has to change, I think, if we're going to continue to grow.
I agree. Okay, before I let you go, show off your jacket. What do you got there?
So the merch at the Detroit Auto Show this year is outstanding. There's a booth that's actually right in front of the main stage, and I was walking by yesterday. I saw this piece that reads, "There's only one Motor City," and there's a bunch of other things that they have there, but it really is top notch. Get some for you, get some for the kids. They're doing a great job on the floor. And Sam, as a quick comment, who's running the auto show, unbelievable work.
Right. And only a second year doing it.
And every year we have to continue to get better and think about what is automotive. It's robotics, it's autonomous vehicles, it is humanoid robotics. Yeah. I think we're going to see a lot more, not just this year, which is an amazing show, but in the years to come.
Sounds good. Chris, thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Great to meet you.
We're going to take a short break here on Local 4 Live. When we come back, we're going to have a conversation with Claude Molinari from Visit Detroit about growing the economy and the things that they already have in the pipeline to make sure that happens when we come back. Hey everybody, Nick Monticelli here on our Overdrive show after Pancakes and Politics on Local 4 Live and Local 4 Plus. Claude Molinari is now here, the man behind the curtain at Visit Detroit, making everything happen. It was a great conversation that was had up here. And every single one of the things they talked about directly tied to all the work that you're doing to move the regional economy forward and bring more people to the city of Detroit.
Oh yeah, there's no question. And I think, Nick, that it's so important that we are looking towards the growth And how's that going to happen? And a lot of it happens because we have to have jobs for people. And I think that's a critical ability. 51% of the available jobs in Southeast Michigan are not serviced by public transportation. So there's people who could work if they had the opportunity. And I think that's a critical piece. And then, from our standpoint, we're all about growing our ability to host events, and that starts with hotels.
Which actually is happening right outside the door here.
That's no question. And I'm hopeful that, every morning I wake up and every night I go to bed about how we're going to get more hotels here. And we're working with developers, with the Downtown Authority, and I feel like we've got some more announcements coming up pretty soon.
Okay, a little tease there.
Yes.
Can you kind of give us some of the numbers in terms of where we're at with hotel spaces and rooms? Because we can attract more events. We have the venues. We have the backing financially for most of these things. We just don't have places for people to stay, and that's why we are skipped over.
It's so critical. Basically, if we doubled our current hotel capacity, that would only put us in the middle of our competitive set.
Doubled it?
Doubled it.
How many rooms is that?
So we're at 6,000. Like a place like Philadelphia, Indianapolis, they're at 12, 15, 30,000. So it really puts us in a competitive disadvantage. So that's why it's so critical that we build these hotels that are within walking distance or connected to the convention center, because that's what our customers demand, or our would-be customers that aren't coming because we can't attract them.
Now, you talked about walking distance. Is that kind of the key there? Because we do have plenty of hotels regionally.
Yes.
Dearborn's only 20 minutes west.
Absolutely.
You don't have to go that far, but it's about being in the downtown core.
It is. It's when you're looking at these major conventions, as soon as you say to somebody, we're going to put you on a bus, and it's going to be a beautiful motor coach, they're like, and we're out. It's all about, I need to be able to walk to where I need to go, or within like the people mover, something though within a mile of the center. Beyond that, then it starts. And we have the same issue in Novi too, whereas we've got this very large building, but the hotel capacity means that it cannot reach its potential.
Interesting. I didn't realize that it was that much of a non-starter for these would-be clients.
Just to give you an idea, in the last 5 years, we've lost over 600,000 room nights because events that wanted to come here, we didn't meet their criteria from a hotel room standpoint. So again, it's like, hey, Claude, I need you to give us 6,000 hotel rooms. We can only give you 4,000. They don't give us 4,000. They give 6,000 to another city.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I know you can't spill the beans here, but in terms of timeline, do you think we can get to that 12,000 mark in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yes, I do. I think that, there are things in play, and Detroit, the perception of our city has changed so much. I was just at a conference in Philadelphia, and cities like Portland, Minneapolis, Memphis, they were saying, we got to find out what Detroit's doing. We got to follow their model, because we've really changed that paradigm. And so as developers start to see us as a real great destination to build on, I think that's going to continue.
So in terms of number of hotels then, to double capacity, are we talking another 4 or 5 hotels?
I'd say we really need six major hotels, like 600-room hotels that could then elevate us to that next level.
Gotcha. Okay. In terms of the other, you talked about this at the beginning, but I'll circle back to it. I know your job mainly is to bring in events and attractions to the city of Detroit, but this conversation about attracting people to stay here and to work here, how much of that plays into the work that you do?
Well, it really, so what happens is, let's say we go to book something, someone will say, all right, great, I like your center. But where am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? Where am I going to shop? Where am I going to party? Where am I going to do events? And if you don't have that whole thing, Woodward has changed so much with our shopping now that has become, if not a strength, it's certainly neutral. Where before it was a big weakness. Our restaurants and our attractions, huge benefit. Having all 4 major sports teams right downtown within walking distance of our hotels and convention, huge benefit to us in order to sell. So we've got so many positive things. We just have that one Achilles heel. But again, having a vibrant downtown where all these people are running around. I had clients recently at Les Supreme on Washington Boulevard at the Book Tower, and they just look at all these people. This is like just an afternoon into the evening. They were shocked. They were so excited to see all these people wandering around, and those are residents. So a vibrant, active city with a lot of different industry, that draws people.
Okay, you heard it here first. 6 new hotels in the next 5 to 10 years. I'm holding you to it.
Sounds good.
Okay, Claude. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Sir.
We're going to take another short break here on Local 4 Plus and Local 4 Live. When we come back, a conversation with Antoine Bryant, the Director of Planning for the City of Detroit. Welcome back, everybody, to this special edition of Local 4 Live, Pancakes and Politics, and the Overdrive Show. Antoine Bryant is here. He's the Director of Planning and so many other things for the city of Detroit, even though there was such a conversation focused around what's happening in Detroit, but much a larger picture, too. I wanted to start with you because you had a question about transit, and you talked about, mobility and what that should look like and what we can do better in the city of Detroit. What's your stand on that? What should we be doing better?
So it's a great question, Nick. I think one of the things we have to integrate the various levels of mobility that we have far better. Most cities that are growing and growing fast are growing because the residents...
Your microphone a little hold there. It's loud in here.
Well, apologies. We want to be able to have the residents to be able to move around easier and be able to have various ways to do so, not just dependent upon their cars. Right. This city was built on the automobile, but will not grow based exclusively on the automobile. Right. And so how can we strengthen our mobile network, which includes buses, which includes light rail, which includes e-scooters and all of the like, while also strengthening our pedestrian walkways. Yeah. Now, I was brought on as Director of Planning and Development. I've now transitioned.
That's right. I keep forgetting that you moved to a different job now.
But I'm still involved in the development and growth of the city. I work for Gensler as an architecture and planning team that's heavily involved in how cities grow as well.
Yeah, which that was actually my next question for you. And again, I apologize. I keep forgetting you moved on.
Yes.
Is that when there is such a vibrant injection of interest and, let's be honest, money investment into a city like this, how do you in your former role and current role balance the needs with the residents of the city, because they should come first,
absolutely,
with what the investment groups want to do and the buildings that they want to put up?
Well, I think I would like to. There's been a tremendous focus on the economic engine of the city, which is obviously the downtown core and a lot of our corridors. But now we're at a pivotal moment where we have the opportunity to really leverage our resident base and really focus there. It could be a both and not an either or. I think we've heard numerous times from Mayor Sheffield that her focus will be on the residents, and this is an opportunity to allow them even more to be a part of that dialogue, because frankly, stronger and better opportunities for our residents will continue to make a stronger city and make this one where people will still want to come to the area.
Right. I'm not sure if you want to dive into this topic, so if the answer is no, I completely understand. But there was some feisty conversation about the 375 project. I guess I want to ask you, what are your thoughts as a citizen of Detroit, as somebody who has seen some of the separations and the equality issues that we've had? Do you think some, as Warren and Chris and Jared, they all said, this is not me, this is them, saying that the intentions were right, but the project moved too fast originally, and now we're dialing it back, and it might be better. What do you think?
So I appreciate that question, Nick, and I will address it.
Okay.
There's a couple different lenses I looked at it, right? So we're actively involved in that process when I was at the planning department. From a purely infrastructure standpoint, the infrastructure's failing. Right, so you have to fix it no matter what you do. You got to do something just because it's failing. Then from a urban overlay standpoint, and I think you heard Chris talk about it eloquently, for pedestrians to traverse it, it's very tough. And some of the iterations that were originally done, it was not going to make that part much better. I think this is as good a time as any to address it as a transportation problem, as an infrastructure problem, while taking the time to talk about what it can do to rebuild a community in a much more ethereal sense. I think we heard the county executive talk about we need to engage at a higher level, but at the time there was a commitment to make sure residents were touched, as well as the professionals, as well as the executives. It must be a much more holistic approach. Sure. But from a purely construction standpoint, there was a lot that needs to be done.
Yeah. My last question for you, which you can speak to both of them. Warren Evans talked greatly in terms of infrastructure about how some of the infrastructure is aging so far past the point that the architects, the engineers don't even want to touch these things. So we're looking at just replacing, tearing down and rebuilding some of this instead of fixing them up.
Correct.
How does that kind of change the timeline that you, that in your former role had, and everybody else? Because there's lots of projects that need to be done and nowhere near enough money to go around.
It comes down to champions. Every major effort needs substantial champions to be able to substantiate it. From the design standpoint,
you're talking about money.
Well, I marry money with will.
Okay.
Right, because you need someone to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. I think we've had too much hand wringing for the last couple of years, and so no decision gets made, and so nothing actually gets done.
Right.
And so you need an entity or some group of entities to say we're going to focus on this, this, and this, and then make it go. The design team can make anything, design worthy.
Sure.
We can
You can draw a picture.
I guarantee. We'll even put the schematics for it. Like in architects, we can make sure the schematics are there to get it done.
Yeah.
But you have to have the money and the willpower to make it go through.
Got it. Okay, Antoine Bryant, thank you so much, friend.
Nick,
The
it's always a
former
pleasure.
director of planning. I won't make that mistake again. It's the
You're
second
good.
time I've done that.
No, you're good.
We're going to take a short break. We come back. One more conversation about transit. And welcome back to our Pancakes and Politics Overdrive show here on Local 4+. Ed Davis is a lobbyist in the transportation world and transit, so we know where he stands on some things, but that also means that we can have a conversation about what's happening in Lansing and some of the conversations about what the thoughts are. You heard here during the panel, Warren Evans talking about that we will have a millage in Wayne County for those opt-out communities, for everybody to be a part of the county transit system. That's not a Lansing issue, that's a local community issue. Where do you think, though, some of those communities stand? There are plenty of communities in Wayne County that want that, and there are 17 that opted out. How do you think that'll go?
I think that the fact that when you look at it from an economic standpoint, people want people to come and be involved in their cities and things like that. But also, too, it looks like, how is it making so that everybody can win at the end of the day? And when you're looking at the businesses there, and also to the opportunities for people to travel there to and from working, those sorts of things. I think it's going to be, it's going to come down to, let's lay everything out on the table and see what works, what doesn't work, where can we come and meet people in the middle, and that's basically how negotiations happen.
Right. What's interesting is that when you and I were growing up, there was always this stigma around mass transit. It seems like that has changed, and especially the younger generation. They most times prefer it. They don't want to drive.
Correct.
They want to take mass transit. They want to take the bus. They might want to walk. Do you think that'll help?
I think it will a lot. If you look at cities like, I travel a lot, not only in the United States, but also overseas. And I look at places like Chicago, New York, the bigger cities that have the transit, all that. You see kids everywhere, and it's just a way of life. They grew up on those sorts of things. But unfortunately here, we don't have access to that. And I think that as we're moving forward, we have to make that investment in some capacity so that future generations can benefit from it. And it's going to be easier for everybody to make it, because roads and all that kind of stuff, it's just something that's going to have to happen.
Yeah. So if we take the conversation then and kind of dial it down just to downtown Detroit, we've heard so much about how there is this much larger push to bring and attract new and young talent, people that can live here and do these types of new jobs that are going to be coming up for the next decade or so. It seems like that is a vital part of the conversation, though, because if we don't have, at least I've been told, this is not my opinion, if we don't have a mass transit system for these young people to use, they don't want to live here.
Correct. I haven't heard that, but that is somewhere on the thing of some folks who come and visit. The first question they always ask is, "Man, where's your?
How do I get around?
How do I get around?
Yeah.
I don't want to always do an Uber. Like, can we? You
I don't want to pay to park somewhere."
Correct. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, the investment has to be there because people are looking at us on the outside when they're coming in for different events and things like that. They were like, okay, you have the people mover that goes in a circle. You have the thing that goes up and down Woodward. Okay, what about
else you got?
Yeah, what else we got? How long do I got to wait for an Uber? And especially we having a concert or an event, and the prices spike up $40 and $50, something like that, if not higher.
$100 or so to park. Yeah.
It's just a thing of we have to make it easier on folks, and also the opportunity is there. Just make the investment at the end of the day.
Yeah. Last question for you. There's assumptions or just thought processes that mass transit equals bus. There's a lot of other options, aren't there?
Correct. Yeah, you have your trains. You're also too You have your they have these miniature vehicles now where you can do like miniature taxis. You can get in there,
right?
And so and
I
then
think there's one on the auto show floor actually.
Correct. And then the autonomous thing. The thing of I was in California and I got in an Uber car going to the airport, and the car drove me there. Like there wasn't nobody in the.
I don't know if I could do that yet, man.
Look. I was scared, but I said, you know what? I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna put the seatbelt on, and I'm gonna hold on, and it got me there. No problem.
I'm gonna hold on for dear life.
Yeah. But then train anything. I think getting out of the mindset just a bus is going to really turn people around, and people are open to it here. A lot of people think, okay, well, we have an older community here in Detroit, but when you start talking to older folks, they're like, look, we've been on other things, we've been to other places, we traveled and used other modes of transportation, and we're open to everything. Just make it happen at the end of the day.
Yeah, right. All right, Davis,
appreciate
great to meet you, man. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, that's it for us here on Pancakes and Politics. Take care.